everyone, my name is Janice, and for this assignment, I'm going to be talking about one of the core processes in acceptance and commitment therapy, which is called ACT. And the one of the processes that I will be talking about is cognitive diffusion. So, cognitive diffusion is about learning how to step back from your thoughts, like basically your negative thoughts, and instead of getting caught up in them, a lot of the time we automatically believe our thoughts as if they are true, like they are facts, So, this is called being fused with your own internal thoughts. So, an example of this would be if I have a thought that, I'm not good enough, I might believe it right away, where I feel like that I'm not good enough must be true. And it will affect how I feel and what I do, right? So, like, avoiding challenges, so this would, like, basically have me avoid challenges and make me feel discouraged, right? Because in my mind, I'm feeling, oh, I'm not good enough. And this is a negative thought that I'm feeling. So, this has to be true, right? But in ACT, and basically in acceptance commitment therapy, our main goal is to learn that our thoughts are not facts. They are just words or, events that our mind produces, right? And they come and go. So instead of trying to get rid of negative thoughts, which is actually really hard to do, our cognitive diffusion helps us change how we relate to them, right? And it helps us create some space so the thought doesn't control us, um, which doesn't control us, and we make sure that whatever negative thought that we have, we can't let that get to us in a way where it's like this like in a way where it like this defines who I am. You know what I mean? But it doesn't. So the technique that I'm going to demonstrate is called I am having that thought to that. So it's called I am having that thought that. Okay. So this is a simple cognitive diffusion exercise. So first, I just want you guys to think of you know, um, a negative or like an unhelpful thought that you've had before. So for example, it could be like you're in school and you're studying for a big test and you're having this thought of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail. Now just saying that thought in your mind, I'm going to fail. So since you have that thought in your mind of I'm going to fail, I want you to take a moment and notice how that feels, right? Notice how that statement feels. I'm going to fail. So now we're going to change it slightly by adding a phrase in front of it. Instead of saying, I am going to fail, we're going to change it and say, I'm having the thought that I'm going to fail. Say that again slowly in your mind. I'm having the thought that I'm going to fail. Now, notice if anything feels different. For example, like many people that create a bit of distance, the thought might not feel as strong or as true, right? That's just an internal thought that you're having. Even though you're saying that I'm going to fail, might not be the honest truth, to be honest. It might not be the exact truth. You haven't done the test. You haven't done the test yet. It's just internal negative thoughts and assumptions that you feel like that you're going to fail the test, right? So now let's take it one step further. For example, I'm going to say, I notice that I'm having the thought that I'm going to fail. So again, just pause. I want you guys to pause and just notice how that feels, right? I'm just going to repeat it again. I notice that I notice that I'm having the thought that I'm going to fail, right? And we're just going to pause and notice how that feels. What this exercise does is remind us that a thought is just something that our mind is producing, and it's not necessarily a fact. We just don't have to, automatically believe it or act on it. So basically, like, react on it right away, even though this situation isn't true, and you know that you haven't failed because you haven't taken the test yet, right? So instead of being stuck in that thought, we're stepping back and observing it. So we're going to take a step back and we're going to think about it and we're going to observe it, right? That's basically what cognitive diffusion is. So overall, cognitive diffusion is it helps us take a step back from our thoughts, and it basically lets us see more clearly in how we respond instead of reacting automatically. So it's all about fusing those negative thoughts that we just had and looking at it in a bigger picture and twisting the words of just saying, finding a different way of just saying, like, I'm going to fail. Let's try to use other ways to say it. Instead of saying I'm going to fail, I'm having the thought that I'm going to fail. Like, I don't know, I feel like I'm going to fail. Like, you know what I mean? So those are two different things, right? Another helpful way to think about cognitive diffusion is to understand diffusion is to think of the thoughts like, think of it as like clouds in the sky, right? So when you think of clouds and when you see them in the sky, they come and go, right? So we can simply notice them without holding on to them or believing every single one, right? So that's what it all sums up to within cognitive diffusion, right? So this helps us stay focused on our actions and what truly matters, for ourselves rather than being controlled by our inner thoughts. All right, so that basically sums up what cognitive diffusion is. And I hope you guys enjoyed. And thank you very much. Bye now.